Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Today we have a new set of crazy stories about crazy people for you to enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Sit comfortably. Here we go. Did you just cut in line? I work at a coffee shop. I won't say which, but it's exactly the one someone would think of immediately when they hear coffee shop, at least in the US. Anyway, I'm manning the register, the second register person is fixing up something else behind me, and the drink maker coworker is busy making drinks, obviously. So there are three of us. There's a line of about 4 to 6 people from what I notice in my periphery the moment before the scene begins. I'm in Hawaii and work in a hotel. Yes, the coffee shop is inside a hotel. So 99% of my customers are tourists/off-islanders. This means I get people from nations all over or within the Pacific Rim, including East Asia, AU, NA, etc. Now, certain countries have certain cultures, which means they are fundamentally different than the US in the most denotative way I can describe. And despite coming to the US and knowing that we are culturally different than their country, they still act like their country's different standards are okay or unproblematic. On to the story. I'm helping a lady of a certain nationality, which is evident by her heavy accent, working in this shop for 4 years, working in Waikiki for 8 years, and living in Hawaii for almost 30, it's practically innate to immediately know someone's ethnicity/nationality from their accent alone. I've barely taken any notice to who's next in line as I'm focusing primarily on the customer ahead of me. I finish up her order, which ends up taking my gaze away from front-face visuals and possibly notice some new customers immediately behind her that might have walked in from the wrong way. I take note of this as cutting in line is just a plausible and realistic thing that happens in life, and more so happens with people of their nationality. By my own personal small but 8-year-long sample size. These two new ladies are of the same nationality as the customer I'm currently finishing up. I point the lady toward the pickup area as people of her age don't usually know how this works, and she shuffles along. As the two ladies approach the register, before I even had a chance to call them forward if I intended to, I put my hand up and say something along the lines of, "Did you two just walk in from this way?" gesturing the opposite direction of the line. You have to wait in line and let these other people go first. I gesture visually showing how the line of people end the queue flow. I make eye contact with the next two customers, Americans, based on their clothes and posture. Americans usually lean on one leg. EU typically distribute balance on 2 legs when standing. They look a little PO'd and are looking at the ladies. Definite evidence. I turn back towards the ladies. The one in front looks a little flustered now, and the one behind starts speaking. "We with her," she points out the previous customer waiting for her drink and isn't even looking this way, as if she has zero actual relation to these ladies or this situation. Noting that the behind lady didn't actually answer the question, textbook deflection, I looked again at the Americans with my eyebrows slightly raised as if asking for their input, but they were pretty fixed on staring daggers at these women now. I look back towards the ladies. The front one is even more thrown, not even making eye contact anymore. And the back lady's trying to fix it by saying, "I'm not here, my friend was in the line though," and walks away, leaving her guilt-ridden friend to take the brunt of everything else I do. I turn to my coworker and tap her on the shoulder as she wasn't aware of the situation and go, "Hey, can you ring the next few customers up real fast?" Then in a lowered voice, "There's an incident." I continued, implying that I would tell her later so I could cause less of a scene and enact more of an immediate fix to the situation. I'm not super confrontational until push comes to shove, and this wasn't one of those moments, so I chose compliance over outright revenge or public freakouting. I started taking the lady's order. She seemed a bit guilty, and I'll admit this is what made me choose to be less vengeful, but I still lean more towards the, "if you don't speak up, you're part of the problem." So I chose to ring her up very slowly, asking her to repeat a few things, she didn't say loud enough, forgetting something once or twice, and ultimately doing everything physical in a slower manner while my coworker rung up the line quickly. Eventually, it timed out nicely that by the time I finished her whole order, the entire line was rung up and their drink orders were in queue. So I simply placed her 2 cups down at the end of the queue, as that's just when I happened to have finished her order, and put a nice smiley face instead of asking for her name, which I can neither confirm nor deny means decaf this drink. As the compliance was set in motion, out of my hands now, I restocked a bit, keeping an eye on the 2 ladies. The guilty one was off to the side, looking away, as the brash one stood front and center at the handoff point, expecting the next drink to be hers. Then the next drink, then the next drink, as the actual drink owners had to maneuver their arms around to grab their drinks. The Americans actually asked her to step aside, which made them smile and her frown more. Eventually, they got their whole order, after every other customer had been served and left. And the brash woman looked like she was fuming from her impatience, and as they walked out, they didn't even glance at their friend, the first customer sitting with her family, still showing no sign of knowing these other 2 ladies. And our next story. The charming story of how a neighbor came to be jacked up. This story isn't about me, but my dear old dad. Back in the day, he used to be a plumber. He then went on to join the military, where he sustained various injuries / chemical exposure. Anyway, this happened during the time when he was fighting for his disability. On occasion, he would do side jobs just to get by. It was very painful / difficult work for him, but alas, the bills needed paid. At the time, he had a neighbor up the road who needed some pretty serious work done in his home and offered to pay my dad a bit over $3,000 for the labor. To be frank, $3,000 was a bit on the low end for the work, but my dad figured, hey, help a neighbor out. He really needed to make some extra cash. The holidays were coming up, a little over 2 months before Christmas. The guy buys the supplies, my dad does the labor, with promises that he'll be paid when it's finished. You already know where this is going. Surprise, surprise, the work gets finished and the guy doesn't pay up. Not only does this guy not pay my dad, but has the gall to laugh at my dad and ask him what he's going to do about it since the work was under the table. Neighbor be damned. Oh, was he? My dad ever PO'd. I remember when he flat out told me that SOB might not ever pay me, but he's going to be paying someone that $3,000. You just watch, sweets. And he got to work. He couldn't spend a lot of time on his feet, but he had quite a few hours to kill, and he started planning this dude's comeuppance. He went to the store and bought a crapload of jacks, the kind that come in the game of jacks with the rubber ball and whatnot. He then proceeded to spend the next couple of weeks sharpening them up and making the ends into little spikes. Every time he would drive by this guy's house, he'd casually toss a handful out the window into this guy's driveway. You can imagine this guy was constantly getting flat tires and had to continuously repair and replace them. Fast forward to Christmas Day. My dad calls me up cackling hysterically, so I asked him what's up. This is actually one of my favorite memories of him. He tells me, remember that neighbor, the one who effed me over? Well, I just drove by his house. The wife and kids are all dressed up for church, standing in the front yard by their car, and it's got a couple of flats. You see, I think he wised up because he started parking in the grass, but mother effer didn't know I threw them in the yard, too. I love my dad. And our last story. You want me to stay an hour after close? Sure, I'll do that. One of the most frustrating things about the warehouse work I used to do was the complete disconnect between the sales staff and the warehouse. Sales staff would promise the moon and stars to customers to secure a sale with little to no consideration for what it would do to the warehouse staff. This would range from promising that we would be able to load up a product that clearly wouldn't fit into a vehicle, that we would lift something that would take 4 guys when we'd only have 1 person staffed, and the worst one, that we would wait for a customer to come back and pick up goods. After a few months of these ridiculous promises, I finally went to management and said if sales staff expected us to stay past close to assist a customer, then we would be billing that time as overtime. Management downright refused, as the company couldn't afford overtime. A few days after that conversation, I was on the sales floor unpacking a new range of rugs when a salesperson approached me with this woman who immediately had the "I'm better than you" atmosphere and perpetual resting bee face. I could tell already from this lady's smug smirk that she's worn down the salesperson and made them promise her something that would be against policy. Sales associate: "Hey, OP, this lady has bought a few rugs from out back. Can she come pick them up later?" Me: "Sure, you can pick them up between now and 5 p.m. Lady, smug: "Salesperson has already said I can come back at 7:30 p.m. and pick them up." Me: Well, miss, I'll be here until 5 p.m. After that, the warehouse is closed for the evening. If you'd like, I can always help you tomorrow morning. I'll be here at 7:30. You better be here or I'm calling the manager and effing complaining. I just gave her a shrug and went back to work. Oh, and you better clean those rugs before I pick them up. I'm going to be inspecting them and they better be effing spotless. She then turned on her heel and walked off. B, you paid $20 a piece for clearance rugs that originally retailed at $350. Salesperson walked away, assuming all was good. There's no way I'm waiting 2.5 hours for such a condescending, crabby B. I grabbed my trolley and made my way back to the warehouse, passing the clearance area. As I'm walking, I notice a lady's purse sitting among a stack of cushions. I walk over and pick it up. Before I take it to the counter, I have a gut feeling. Can it be? I open the purse to find a driver's license. It's this B customer's license and purse. I chuckle to myself as I walk back to the warehouse, make my way to the warehouse office, and take extra care to safely secure her purse inside our safe. I then start my closing up process, and as a little extra slice of pettiness, type in the all-purpose alarm code and reset the alarm system code so only I can unlock the warehouse when I show up for my shift the next morning. Good luck getting your rugs and purse. Aftermath. Apparently, this lady showed up at 7:30 p.m. only to find the gates locked, everything pitch black, no rugs. She filed a complaint and wanted a full refund, not for the clearance prices she paid, but for the full price of the rugs. When I was questioned about this, I provided my manager with the emails from the GM stating that they don't pay employees to work overtime. They also questioned me about the change of alarm system code, and I just said that we had a potential security issue, and with this lady's expensive purse being left in store, I figured it'd best be resolved the following morning and kept in a safe and secure spot. In the end, this bee got her purse back, but I like to think she wasted a ton of gas and caused her immense amounts of aggravation. When the customer did show up to pick up her rugs, I also helpfully pointed out it was illegal for her to be driving without a license. She shot me the most amazing death glare I've ever seen. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.